Council members, do you have any questions of Ms. Fargo? Councilmember McClellan?
Yeah, last week I didn't get the answer that I was looking for. How many people, since you came on, the time you started, till last week, how many have you cut the staff by?
3, and left vacancies in addition, and the net gain is $28,000.
So how many do you have on your staff now?
We have 14 full-time equivalents right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wells?
All right, Cindy. Hi.
Hi.
Listen, I want to ask some tough questions.
Sure.
And I want to start by saying I know you weren't here for most of this. CDC's done a lot of good things, and there's absolutely no question about that. But I think that a lot of times the debate about this gets, whether or not the things you've done are good or they're not good, they're worthwhile, they're not worthwhile. To me, the question really is, we had a when I was first elected, one of the big questions I had from people was, am I getting my bang for the buck with the CDC? Is it worthwhile? And I tried to get a lot of those answers, felt like I couldn't get the questions answered. This before you were here. So I asked the council to approve a performance audit. We did the performance audit and came back extremely negative about the practices of the CDC. There was a lot of questions, a lot of thought that was a politically motivated thing, so we thought we would go to the next step. We talked to the council about getting a Blue Ribbon Commission. Blue Ribbon Commission came back. Their report was extremely critical, not necessarily of whether or not the CDC was doing good things or not, but whether or not the money was being well spent. What I get from this report is that the CDC is an organization that has become a quasi-government organization that has become very bloated, has spending way too much money on overhead. Maybe I'm wrong. What I heard from your consultant tonight was what he's suggesting is that we basically dismantle the board, come back with one director, 1 or 2 employees, and a whole new board with property owners giving the input as the direction of the CDC, how the money should be spent, and what the direction is. Meaning, it may be a completely different direction as far as what kind of business we want to have, what kind of business we exclude, what kind of businesses we recruit. My question to you is, and there's a little bit of urgency because your consultant's telling me we got to decide this in a couple of weeks, what we're going to do. So my question is just real straight, I'm putting you on the spot here. Aren't we willing to do that? If we go back to the voters and say, hey, do you want to put a tax on yourself, is the CDC willing to come back and say, we're going to cut down from the 80 employees to 3. We're going to cut down from a $600 and some odd $1,000 payroll to $125,000, $150,000. We're going to revamp. We're going to come back with an entirely new board with entirely new makeup, and we're going to let the citizens that own the businesses set the direction. Are you ready to do that? Is that what you want to do, or do you? And I'll stop there. And I apologize for being so blunt, but I think we've come to a point in this process where we just have to ask these hard questions.
I think you're absolutely right, and I'm ready to answer those hard questions for you. Let me start by saying this. When I first came to the El Cajon CDC, I asked some of the same questions myself and began working on the answers to those questions because I too was concerned about the number of staff, about how we were spending a substantial amount of money, and about the absolute accountability for receiving benefits that were calculable benefits and returns on the investment that the property owners were making. And so we began right away to start to examine what the service levels were for certain areas and do run sort of models as far as, like say the First Baptist Church, let's go back there. What are they paying and what are they getting? And so we looked at all of that sort of quantifiable data to say, okay, the First Baptist Church pays X amount of money and here's what they get in market value services. I fully believe and embrace that we need to be able to prove that we are of benefit and direct benefit, not just fluffy, la-la land conversation about potential benefit. I actually believe in what we're talking about when it comes to accountability for PBID assessments. And I fully intend to implement that through opportunities that I hope are given to the CDC. I have demonstrated my ability to do such thing in other communities, notably Escondido, where there was a business improvement district, and I was able to, right to the penny, quantify for property owners and for business owners rather, what is the value they're paying in and what is the value that they're getting out. And oftentimes, because the service levels were so high, I could say to somebody, in all honesty, Councilor Wells, in all honesty, you paid us $325, you got $1,200 worth of services, shall we leave it at that, or do you want to owe us the amount of money in between? Do you follow what I'm saying? We actually were providing more services than the person was paying, and that's my goal for this district. I think we have seen a CDC board change in the last few months with regard to their responsiveness to the VRC, to its issues, and to the understanding that we need a PBID management council in place, dominated by property owners. We need some restructuring of the assessments because, as Brad has described, they are too aggressive for the time, for the snapshot of the economy that we're in right now. We want to be market responsive. I do know that besides clean and safe services, that we have to continue to provide really strong marketing, promotions, and special events so that so that our businesses in the downtown area will survive. We also have to provide really excellent business recruitment, strategic activities in order to get a survival rate that's higher for the people who are already here. So do I think the CDC is changing? Do I think it's willing to change? Yes. Do I think that our board will change in the long run? Yes. Do I think that we're capable of doing all of this and doing it well? Yes. Do I think it's going to be a rocky road to recover confidence in some areas of the community? Yes. I'll be very honest with you whenever you ask me questions. I am not going to mince words. I'm not going to trot around the topic. You will get clean and safe and honest answers from me every time you ask. Have I answered your question fully, or would you like me to expand more?
What I'm looking for is specifics, and maybe it's not right to put you on the spot. Maybe what you want to do is come back with a plan of correction within a few days. But what I'd be looking for to put the stamp of approval of the city council on our further involvement in a PBID would be for the CDC, for you, to come back and say, we want to manage the PBID. And we're going to get the privilege of managing that PBID, we're going to cut our expenses on payroll from $600,000 to $100,000 or $125,000, whatever you think that figure would be. We're going to, here's the plan to dismantle the board completely and to put it, this is exactly the number of people we're going to put on the board, how we're going to choose the people on the board. These are the 3 employees we're going to have. That's what I'd be looking for, and not generalities.
I understand.
And I wouldn't necessarily be so urgent to do this. It's something we can leisurely do over the next 6 to 8 months, except that we have apparently just a few weeks to make a decision.
You don't have 6 or 8 months to create that scenario.
Right.
You're absolutely correct. And I do have to also give credit to my board, who's already starting to discuss how these formulas would be put in place and what's the time frame for that. The elections for the CDC are normally in June, and so the timing would be perfect with the adoption of the recertification and the establishment of the CDC as the entity. They would move right into making those changes, or they would establish the management council or management board for the PBID to align and partner with the CDC. So those things are already under very precise and specific discussion.
When do you think we would have specific answers to those questions?
Well, I have to get some guidance from our board, but we do have a board meeting the 4th Thursday of this month, so that's next week. I feel we could provide you with some concrete input.
Make it clear that I'm not speaking for the rest of the council. They may not have the same thoughts as me at all, but for me to be excited about voting for continuance of any kind of tax, I want that's the direction I want to see us go in. And, but I'd certainly be open to discussing that if you were really interested in making those kind of drastic changes.
Thank you.
Councilmember McLean.
When our consultant had our workshop, what was it, a couple months ago, why weren't these changes made at that time? How come it took your Mr. Siegel to come in and suggest these things before it was even brought up? Why were not the changes made right away when the consultant came in? Why didn't you come up with the ideas rather than having to bring a consultant in to do that, pay him?
Well, there's two answers to that. First of all, I have to ask the question of which meeting were you talking about? I'm sorry.
I'm talking about when we had our consultant and they confronted you with their evaluation of
Are you
the
speaking
CDC.
about Mr. Barnett?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, two answers. I lost a little bit of train of thought there. Can you give me a little help, counselor, on the two questions again?
Why weren't the changes made at that time, and why did it take Mr. Siegel to come in and make these suggestions on how a preview should be run before you decided, well, this wouldn't be a bad idea after all, but why didn't you do them on your own?
Well, first of all, we are required to operate under the PBID management plan that exists. And changing that course in midstream is not an easy thing at all. So that's the first piece. There's a structural piece, an agreement that we have that we must follow. It was very quickly after I arrived that I pointed out to our board members that a management council for the PBID was not separately in place. Within weeks of the time that I arrived, I
Are those
said,
in your minutes?
well, I have lots of conversations with board members that are not part of minutes, so no,
You
I don't think
bring
they'd be part of any official board conversation, but they certainly were conversations between myself, our executive committee, our board chair, etc. And you have my word, which I constantly stand on in that matter. I don't want to take any shine away from the consultant's presentation. Many of the things that were mentioned in there are things that I have discussed with our board prior to their arrival. The tool that we need to employ to get the recertification accomplished is the hiring of an outside consultant. That's part of what we are obligated to do. That person brings a fresh perspective, they bring the expertise, and they can help on an unbiased basis guide all of us through this process. And you can see we chose a consultant who is a taskmaster, and he has identified they have identified some very important things and worked very hard since they've been on board. I don't think that anyone would say that most of their recommendations are things that the CDC 6 months or 2 years ago would have proposed on their own. There's certainly things that have been on my mind since I got here, and certainly things that have been suggested by me, for the most part, to our board of directors, informally, admittedly. But we were not in a position with a current management plan to make those changes. We also had to release our obligations to the state as far as being a CHOTO. And as soon as we did that, that frees up those other requirements with regard to the board of directors that the CDC had put in place because they became a designated CHOTO. So now we can free ourselves of those obligations because we are no longer a designated CHOTO and no longer doing housing projects.
Now, when you came in to hear Mr. Barnett's report, you were defending what was going on at that time, rather than saying, here are the changes that I planned on making and I've made since I came in, and here they are. But it took Mr. Siegel to come up with some ideas that this is the way that PBIDs are run. This is the way we should change it. And why didn't you bring that up at that time? We would have been a lot more comfortable with your, running to the system and how it works.
Well, first of all, that was not a question in that manner that was asked of me. The commission, or the council rather, had selected the consultant, had directed the consultant's work, and the body of the consultant's information that was prepared and presented was not information that was related to the PBID. It was related to fiscal accountability and to all kinds of other scenarios, many of which I will still stand firmly on were not accurately portrayed in the report. And I know that that may not be your favorite thing to hear, but I think we have responded fully, as you'll see in your information, to the BRC report. which recaps, again, some of the issues that were raised in the Barnett report. So while I respect that the report was generated by your action, I don't think that it was fully interpreted to the level that it should have been. The information there was not all correct, and there were some leaps of assumption which I wouldn't agree to and wouldn't support and wouldn't encourage as a matter of making findings that are responsible for a platform for council decision.
Don't you think that most of the businesses that are going to vote will receive a copy of the Ribbon Committee report and they'll be able to look at that before they decide what they want to do?
Certainly, and they should receive a copy of the report that has our responses to it. We are transparent. I stand for any questions that any member of our community, regardless of whether they're a business owner, a property owner, a resident, or an interested party at large. I stand for those questions and will honor them by honestly answering them. Thank you.
Any other questions of the council members? Any questions by staff? And now I'd like to give the public and the Blue Ribbon Commission members an opportunity to ask Ms. Fargo any questions. Yes, sir, come on up.
I actually just have a question for Mr. Seagal. She just mentioned you were part of the current management plan back in '95, correct? You said okay, so she mentioned that nothing could have been changed to the current management plan. Was your current management plan calling for 14 people to manage the PBID at that time that they were currently following when she currently came into the position?
These management plans are good for 5 years. So the management plan we put together in 1995 was good until 2008. And then a new management plan went into effect in 2001. Another new management plan went into effect in 2006. So the CDC is currently working with a management plan from 2006 that we were not involved with.
I guess my question would be, in the management plan, does it state overhead costs such as you laid out? Does it state, X amount of dollars to run the PBID, X amount of dollars for clean and safe?
One of the complications here is CDC and PBID have blended together over time. And the way this was envisioned back in 1995 was PBID as a standalone. So over the last 15 years, this thing has become more than PBID. There's PBID and CDC. And I think that's one of the things, where did that gentleman go? I think that's one of the things we're trying to do with the 2011 management plan is sort of pull the PBID piece out again, whether it's sitting in the CDC or not, but pull the PBID out, PBID as a discrete piece. So it's not all blended together. I would assume the intentions were the best of intentions at some point when that leap was made, and all sorts of things could happen. But as we saw, it blended together, and it's really kind of hard to untangle. It's hard, for any of us to hear these acronyms sort of thrown around. So Cindy, to her credit, is really inheriting a large CDC and PBID all blended together. We want to pull the PBID piece out again so that the property owners really understand and have the full accountability to what's going on.
Are there any other questions of Ms. Fargo?
Yeah, Ray Lutz with citizensoversight.org. I'd like to re-ask my question because it didn't get answered yet, and that is, what does the CDC provide that is really, really good that the CBID doesn't provide? I mean, I need to still understand why all these extra people are there, and if they're not needed, why is there resistance to getting rid of them? Maybe just adopt what they say right off the bat. Why go through this whole election? If what they say is right and there's no benefit to the CDC extra stuff, get rid of it. Because everybody works hard in this world. Everybody's working really, really hard, and we've got to get efficiency up. And so we got to see what's efficient here, and take it down to what we need. So I just need to know, I'd like to, the question is, what does the CDC do? Maybe historically, I mean, you can say, here's what it used to do, and maybe we don't need that, or this is really good, we have to have that. Explain it. Thank you.
The CDC operates currently a downtown revitalization program that is comprehensive. It includes organizational development, resource development, leadership development, volunteer development, but also the more important pieces that are services that are on the ground, and those include the design services and technical assistance. We provide some of those through the PBID, and we provide additional assistance in the management of the Design Review Commission and the grants process. Those are contracts that we have over and above the PBID management plan. Those contracts are with the redevelopment agency of the city of El Cajon. So that's one piece of work: design, technical assistance, grant administration for the grants program, and also the management of the Design Review Commission. In the special events and marketing and promotions area, you have seen the signature events that have been rolled out in El Cajon throughout the years. The classic car cruise and the concerts on the green, the most noteworthy. In addition to that, we have cooperative advertising that we provide and underwrite for the merchants in the business community, including the 360 video and also the related virtual tour that we have. So we have a comprehensive cooperative advertising, marketing, promotions, and special events. This may not seem important to those who do not operate a business in the downtown area, but as I believe you will have seen, did they receive the package of communication that came today? So you've seen a lot of the voicemails and emails and things like that. Those folks are very descriptive and very supportive of their need to get cooperative advertising support and marketing and promotions and special events support from the CDC. These are not services that are easily provided, and they're also labor-intensive services. The third area of our work, which is really significant in the community and ever more pressing in these economic times, is the economic development piece. The real estate readiness. We have functionally obsolete properties in the downtown area that cannot be leased because they are 8,500 square feet. Those need to be reconformed into spaces that are 800 to 2,000 square feet that more suit the retail marketplace. There is consistent conversation in the community about the importance of filling vacancies in the downtown, and that business recruitment activity and that strategic market analysis that we've done, that's a big piece of that activity. That recruitment activity serves to support the other businesses that are here, because the weaker the linkages are between businesses and the more vacancies there are, the less likely businesses are to survive in the future of the downtown. We don't want to have a continual revolving door in the downtown, and in order to do that, we need to firm up the business clusters that we have in retail, restaurant, and entertainment. Following that, of course, a big key anchor piece of that is work in the future with the Performing Arts Center, as you pointed out. So we've talked about the three key performance areas. Icing on the cake and top priority is always our Clean and Safe program. We roll out those services on the ground, and the business community and the property owning community are very supportive of those services. They're highly engaged with our ambassadors. They know our ambassadors by name, and this service in and of itself usually covers what's being paid by at least the mid-rate of the assessment payers. So I think overall we're providing services that cover the comprehensive needs of a revitalization program, and over and above that, we provide the services that are specialized in our contract area with the city, and in addition to that, which I haven't described, is the Neighborhood Vitality Program. So while we are revitalizing the inner core of the community, the business community, we're also revitalizing the neighborhoods that surround the downtown area so that their per capita income increases, their rate of home ownership increases, and their rate of use of downtown services and businesses increases as well.
Okay, thank you. I just want to ask one more thing. One of the tenants in the downtown area is the East County Chamber of Commerce. Is there somebody here who's representing the East County Chamber of Commerce that wants to comment on their role in helping businesses get started, design business plans, a lot of the things that were mentioned? Missing in action? Are you?
No, I'm a member.
No, I mean representative of maybe the president. Not here? Missing in action?
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
This
so
is
they're not
not
here.
for that right now.
Well, I'm just asking the question if someone's here from the Chamber of Commerce that's taking an interest in the downtown, and they're not. Thank you.
Are there any other questions of Ms. Fargo? Well, this is for, I'd like you to comment a little bit later when we had the time for that. Thank you very much, Cindy. Is there anything else that you want to say that you think can sum up?
No, I look forward though to continued conversation about this important issue and to continue to provide you with the technical assistance that will support your decision-making process. Thank you so much for this workshop tonight.
Thank you. I've read that a wise man seeks the counsel of many. This city council seeks your counsel now. A lot of you are here because you have an interest and you have some expertise in this area. This is the time to speak. We want to hear what you have to say. Sir, is it Mr. Gibson?
Yeah, let's see if I get the light working here. Daryl, why don't you go ahead and
You know, we had another person that raised his hand first. Could we have him speak, please?
Hi, so everybody knows who I am. My name is Tom Guerra. I'm a mural painter. I grew up in Oklahoma. It's my hometown. Went to every school here. I'm responsible for the Bullet Woodhorst Museum mural that you saw. It's about a block over that way. Big giant on horse and everything. You might have seen that. There's also one on Main Street in Roanoke of some kids marching in a parade carrying American flags. I did that one. Those are the closest ones I can think of to tell you. But mainly, I want you to know that I volunteer a lot for the CDC. They call me all the time when we do community murals. We go into neighborhoods, we paint murals and try and clean up the neighborhoods and get rid of graffiti. And it's always the CDC that calls me, and it's never the city of Oklahoma, it's never the police, it's never the graffiti abatement people, it's always the CDC. And it's almost always volunteer work. They're there on their days off. And I can mention names, Christine, Rebecca, there's a lot of them. And if you're looking for things that they do that help the community, that's one big thing we do to get rid of, as you can tell, by that mural right there, I didn't do that lovely one right there, but isn't that a lot nicer than a gray wall behind you? I mean, doesn't it cheer you up and make you feel better? So we try and do that for the city, and most times it's volunteer work, and I'll be honest with you guys, I see a lot of CDC people there when we do these, and a lot of, but I've never seen any one of you, okay? So, just from my point of view, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is John Gibson. I was on the Blue Ribbon Commission. I think I'd like to just summarize a couple things. We've heard a lot here tonight. We've met 2 or 3 times with Brad Siegel. If there's any chance that PBID is going to survive, it's got to be decoupled with the CDC. There's absolutely no trust that I have or any of the businessmen I work with that the CDC is capable of making the changes that need to be made. They operate under a plan that has specific areas of expenditures. And I live in a world of fiduciary responsibilities and managed properties. They do too. There's no semblance between the world I live in and what we've spent 4 months playing cat and mouse trying to get answers. The first column there on the left, under administration, their charter says we're going to spend 25%. If you look at the second column, they spend 45%. So if you look at the numbers there, they're $140,000 over budget line item in administration. Then when it comes to urban improvements, they're supposed to spend 40%, they've spent 26. So they shortchanged the stakeholders that don't have a chance to vote by 100 grand, minor chunk change. Promotion, you've got 27% they're supposed to spend, and they overspend in that area $100,000. A good business keeps some reserves on hand. They spend them down to zero. I'd like to read that paragraph right there. And that tells you why we don't have any trust in it. The CDC is obligated by the management plan to spend at least the minimum amount shown in the plan for the activities listed. The annual audited financial statements and annual reports of the CDC have consistently reported the CD spending more than minimum in each category, demonstrating that the CDC successfully leverages the property assessments for a greater return to the property owners. May I just tell you, that's just not so. Here's an example in the promotion budget where they spent 284 grand. Last week we heard from a couple of promoters that I'd never met on the car show that they got a couple $100 a show. $105,000 got charged to us property owners that were taxed. 105 grand for about 15 or 16 shows. Now if you go back through, I'm no accountant, but if you add in all of the items there, the concerts on the green and other, out of that 284 grand, transferred back into overhead administration was more than half of that number. So when we say the administration was 350 grand, when you have 14 employees and your payroll is 584 grand, the lowest paid people, the lowest 4 people are clean and safe. That's 50 or 60 grand a year. That's what everybody's getting a fuzzy leg here over tonight about how good and what business people are telling they want done. You got too much overhead. You got 600 grand. You got 100% of the P-bid money in a shell game being charged to us stakeholders that have nothing to say about it. Now, do you think that after 5 years, my businesses have spent about 100 grand in those assessments? We've never had one of those funny-looking trucks drive across one of our driveways. We haven't gotten anything out of this. Now, I'm not opposed to a P-bid going ahead if the rest of the business people want it, but I'm totally opposed to having somebody tell me they spent the money the way it was supposed to be spent when I know better. Thank you.
Excuse me, Daryl, our priest. And I think the one thing that we really need to look at here is this isn't the CDC against the property owners. We are the CDC. We're the ones paying for it. Without our money, there is no CDC. And so we are the CDC, really. But if I want to run for the board, I've got to go to them, be interviewed, and be okay to be on there, even though I pay in $22,000 a year. And that to me isn't right, and I think where everybody acknowledges now, where somehow we got off track, is the accountability to the property owners. The ones that actually own the CDC. I'm an owner, you're an owner, you own 33%, I own about 3.5%, and there's not the accountability. And what I'm afraid of is I was here in 2006 and lobbied really hard to renew the CDC back then. And they were in trouble back then, if you remember. There was a lot of controversy, and I actually went out and got the last 3 or 4% they needed. You voted, you had about 25, 26% then. They were a little short, and so I actually went out and lobbied to do that. I was a giant supporter, so it's not somebody that's been negative. I haven't mind paying the money in if I see value, but we have gone way off track here. I mean, way off track. Everybody acknowledges that. So to sit here and to try to redo the P-bid, which I 100% support, but to go ahead with the CDC is going to be like Solomon trying to split the baby. Now, I don't think you can do it. And so what I would like to see, and I think a lot of property owners that I've talked to, is let's get this P-bid back to the ownership, let's split the CDC, And if they would like to come in and give us a proposal on doing some of these services and give us a bid like anybody else would, that would be great. And if they can provide the best services and they can do a good quality job, I'm 1,000% for that. But to me, to have them set up the rules on how I'm going to govern my money, because that's what I'm hearing, right? They're going to say, oh yeah, well, our board will vote on this and figure out how the property owners are going to be structured and everything. We've got the hen, or we've got the fox, sorry, watching the hen house again. And so we need to make a clean break, get this thing recertified, get it back in the hands of the property owners, and then if they would like to come to us with a proposal and say, hey, we can do clean and safe, the ambassadors, we've already got the trucks, and this is how much it would cost, and then the property owners can say, hey, that's a great allocation of resources. Or we have this other company that can do it cheaper, there'd be an outside person, and then go on a 30-day or a 60-day contract, and if they don't do their job right, we fire them and go get somebody else that'll do it right. And it doesn't seem to be that hard to do. It's just like I run my business. Everybody here runs businesses. You run a business, Bob. If you have a mechanic that doesn't know how to put an alternator on, you fire them, correct? You don't give them a raise or send them to training school or something. I mean, you get rid of them. And that's what we need to do. No one wants to see the downtown go backwards. I don't want to see it go backwards. I've got as big as investment as anybody in this room, and probably more than everybody else in this room combined. And the last thing I want to do is see it go backwards. And so the reason I got involved with this process is to see it go forward and to make it better and to make El Cajon successful. That's why I've invested 25, 30 million, whatever I invested, and getting ready to invest some more millions building houses. And so I think we can make it better, but we almost need to make a clean break and start over again. And we can do that with a PBID, but the problem is we have very little time. And I don't control the process as a business owner, the CDC does. And so I don't know how we can figure that out or get it to where we vote to get them out of it, because we're on a real short leash here, everybody understands that. And I think everybody understands that if the PBID goes away now, it's going to leave a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And it's going to be real difficult to get back. If we just let the thing die now, we're going to have a problem. So I look at you as a city council to be my representation, because I'm not on the board right now, and I can't be on the board unless I'm okay. And so, and you're a business owner. You're not a bystander that doesn't have any skin in this game. You've got more skin than anybody in this game. And really, you have a more vested interest in anybody because you represent the whole city that wants to see downtown succeed. And so, and everybody wants to see that. And so you guys are kind of like the last bastion to make sure this thing goes right. And what I would like to see, just as Daryl Priest, business owner, owning, 50,000 square feet, I think I still own 52, 53 lots in the downtown area, to really watch out for our interest and to make sure this PBID certification goes correctly and it does represent all the business owners and not just a limited few that may be on this board. Now, you've heard from Mr. Siegel, Brad, that there is no other PBID that he knows of that's set up this way. I think that's what I heard. Am I correct? I mean, and you handle, how many of these PBIDs? You've seen, what, 100, 200, 300 of them?
Well, we put together over 50.
50, okay. So we know the system is flawed. So why would we try to fix a flawed system? Well, why don't we get back to where we started, which we know works, and it works in a lot of cities. Instead of trying to fix something that's broke, let's just start over again and make something that works in the first place. Thank you.
Yes, sir, come forward, Mr. Tallaro.